All right, Calvin, welcome to the show. Welcome to the fourth edition of the new segment, MMA Headlines for the Real Quick and Mike Swick podcast. You were on the top of my list to get on here because we had such great conversation and you're so insightful. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to do the show.
Thanks for having me back on, Mike. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great, man. We've had you on and I feel like, you're a regular now.
The only thing missing is a trip to Thailand so we could do it in person sometime.
Yeah, come in the studio, man. So how's everything going? How you been doing? And are you still training or focusing on your teammate's fight coming up?
Yeah, more so the focus is with Rob, where we are right now. But I'm excited to get back. I've been training and it's tough pulling back. That's like the hardest part. But after that last one, it was rough. Got to give yourself some time to heal up and put in a good camp for the next one. So I'm just excited to be back. But really, it's Rob's show now, man. Main event, May 22nd, Cody Garbrandt. That's a hell of a fight, and I'm excited.
I wanted to ask you about that anyway, so I might as well ask you now. How's that going to go? How is Rob looking during his fight camp, and how motivated is he? It's a big fight. Where do you think Cody's going to be for this fight? Where do you think Rob's going to be? And what is your prediction without giving too much strategy away?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, from what I see, I've always known, how good of a fighter Rob Font is, and that's just, talent, not to mention how hardworking the kid is. There's no denying his work ethic. You spend a day or a week with the kid and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's in the gym 24/7. He eats, sleeps, breathes the fight game. And I don't know how, he found a way to improve through the injury. He's just, he was studying. He had his, his mental game was on point throughout that whole injury. He came back like he didn't skip a beat. Like he improved through the injury without even, training. It was incredible. So yeah, I think he's ready, man, for this opportunity. Main event. It's long overdue, I think, for him to get his first main event. The kid's, ultra talented, ultra tough, exciting. Always going out looking for the finish, and that's exactly what Cody is. So it's going to make for a hell of a fight. But I just think that Rob's just got more tools. I just think he's got way more, in the toolbox to finish the fight. And you'll see on May 22nd. I believe the best Rob Font to step in the octagon.
So is that your prediction that he's going to get a finish and finish Cody?
I don't know how he doesn't. Except obviously Cody's got that speed and he's got that fight under and maybe both hands. He's a tough fighter for sure. I just think Rob's been waiting for this moment for a long time. It's long overdue, and I just don't see him going out and falling short of capitalizing on a big moment. And I think Cody's had these in the past, and I don't know if he's run into a hungrier fighter than Rob Font that he's got coming up.
Yeah, and that makes a different dynamic. And I've known Cody for a while. He's been an in-studio guest, actually, and he's been on the podcast. He's came and trained with me in Thailand here. So obviously I like Cody. And then I had Rob Font on, and I like him a lot. He's super humble, super nice guy, great fighter. This is the interesting dynamic that I love to watch because you got a guy in Cody Garbrandt who's a veteran, who's been there, who's fought the toughest and who's kind of already been at the top and fought the best guys.
Yep.
And the question is he the difference of him fighting this fight mentally versus someone like Rob Font who's trying to get where he was and where he is. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes you can get a very hungry up-and-comer who can put on a hell of a fight better than some of the fights that maybe Cody had at the top, when he was fighting at the best. And not to say Rob isn't one of the best, but I'm just saying he's coming up. So I love these fights with this dynamic where you get this kind of veteran versus this up-and-comer who's very hungry, works hard, nice guy, humble guy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that dynamic specifically. And I don't think it's a question of how Rob Font's going to show up in my mind. But I question, Cody and that comeback. But he's not too far off. It'd be different if he was a couple, numbers further down the line. He's still in the mix. So, I definitely think he's going to be a hungry stepping in there. He's not too far down the chopping block, but fighters maybe a little lower ranked, it might affect them a little bit more differently. But I think you're going to have both guys excited about the opportunity to go out and be maybe one fight away from a title fight. I bet you they'll all be jockeying for it, depending on how that fight goes. If someone gets a big finish, and the other one's a little bit lackluster, you could see maybe these guys steal the front runner spot for the title. So it's an exciting fight for sure. And both guys always look for the finish and going for the kill. So it's going to make for a great fight.
Yeah, and Cody's fast. We know that. But the thing is, also going into this fight, another dynamic that's interesting is, Rob Font has watched Cody so many times, and Cody isn't one to change his game up that much, right? So he's pretty much Cody. So it's like Rob Font has kind of a blueprint of what Cody is, how he wins fights, how he fights, how he reacts. So that's interesting as well. Cody can't possibly have as much information about Rob as Rob has about Cody, which could come into play in various ways in the fight as well. So just overall, I'm very excited about the fight. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight.
Yeah, it's one thing having the blueprint. It's another thing going out and getting the job done. Yep. But I think Rob Font is more than capable. He's overdue, and I think he goes out and capitalizes. Man, I'm excited just, as a teammate, seeing how long he's, what he's been through to get this moment. I'm just excited for him to have this opportunity in front of him, and couldn't happen to a more deserving fighter, in my opinion.
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll get to some headlines here. The biggest news, I think, right now is Conor. Obviously, it's always Conor. Everything he does is huge news. But it's interesting, and I want to get into this a little bit because I've done some research, and I have a little bit of insight on this. But Conor basically got publicly smeared by Poirier. And here's the funny thing is, Conor's got to understand, Conor hasn't played by the rules ever when it comes to talking bad about people. So, hats off to Dustin for using that and doing what he can. He obviously really got under Conor's skin. I don't think he's faking it. And Conor went from, I'm going to beat your ass, to F you, I'm not even going to give you the fight anymore, so that you can go back to your old contract. So you can tell it's real. You can tell that it's like, it may create a build-up to a fight, but it is real. Conor is pissed off that, he was supposed to donate this money, and Dustin saying he hasn't done it. And Conor doesn't like that because Conor's the money guy, and he likes to show that that he's charitable and this, that, and the other. Another interesting thing on just my perspective before I get yours is that, Conor changed again. We saw Conor be Mr. Classy in his last fight and be over the top Mr. Nice Guy. And it took like 1 second to go back to like hillbilly piece of shit. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like he lost his class in a matter of like a second.
Yeah. It's crazy how fast that can happen, huh?
Yeah.
I hope that no matter how rich, famous, good I become, this, that I never lose that grip or that reality, or someone could get that out of me and just that quick, but, we're all dealing with different things. For him, it played well for the second fight, I guess, the Nice Guy Act. It was all right for, it was something different. We hadn't seen it in a while, and we had so much hatred in the Khabib fight. You kind of, whatever, you don't mind seeing some, respect, in the fight game. It's what it was brought up on, I think, originally. But if for some reason, man, you could just tell that all that was bullshit, I think, in the second fight.
Yeah.
It didn't last long, and all it took was a couple comments to really get under the skin. It's like everybody's a nice guy when you're winning, but when you come on after a knockout and then they come at you again, it's a little different, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy to be a nice guy when things are good. But when you catch the wrong side of a knockout and then all of a sudden someone attacks your character over a donation, but what else is the guy going to do? I'm not so familiar with the ins and outs of the team sending what they were going to do. Of course, I respect Conor for his opinion on, wanting to see where the money's going to go. You're spending $500,000, you want to know, but that's where I'm, I don't know the details so much, but. Yeah, credit. I would have said the same shit if I was Dustin. Like, listen, man, you're talking. Let alone, I'm the type of guy myself that if I'm going to do something like that or make donations, I try to genuinely not go public about things like that.
Yeah,
it's not like something I care to like announce. If it gets out, whatever. But I mean, I did like a speech the other day talking to some kids, and they wanted to get like a newspaper guy there. I'm like, I don't want any publicity from talking to some kids. That's not why I'm doing it. If it helps promote your school and things like that, okay, great. But everyone's built differently like that. I try not to judge. The biggest thing is that they're all donating, right? Whether they're the loudmouth or not, as long as they're donating, it's good cause. So, it's just kind of weird how it all went down. And it's funny because if you really don't like guy, he's really pissing you off. It's like he's pissing you off to the point so much that you don't want to fight him because you don't want to give him the payday. How funny is that dynamic?
Yeah. It's interesting he can do that, though. And he's upset.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, I'm bagging on Conor a little bit for going back to the non-classy Conor and stuff like that. But I will say this. I had a 501c3. I just didn't have time to pursue it. And I will say there is a lot of fraud in these foundations. And the foundation, now this is all opinionated. I did some research and I looked up Dustin's foundation. So this is all opinionated. Don't quote me on this, everybody. But this is my best opinion of what's going on here from my experience with a 501c3, doing donations and working with foundations and all this type of thing. And this isn't saying anything about Dustin because I don't know how he runs his company, but this is the situation. The situation is he formed a foundation that is usually, like a lot of times, formed to scam, kind of, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is, Conor could donate to a foundation that specifically builds water wells for children or specifically feeds children or whatever else. And all they do every day is feed children. And then they publicize how much percentage of the actual money they take in goes to feeding children, and then how much goes to salaries and expenses and stuff like that. It could be any amount, but there's no policing the 501c3, so they can do whatever they want. The way that Dustin did it is kind of the shady way, though I'm not saying Dustin's shady in any way. But what happens is it's when you decided to create a foundation so that you can start giving away to many different foundations of your choosing, not any specific one, and you don't list who you're going to give them to. You just decide to do as you will. And then you're giving away other people's money. So you're taking in donations, then you're giving the money. So you're getting all the credit. Like, for instance, the Good Fight would be getting all the credit for, when you go to their website, they've donated to, food banks. They've donated to feed the hungry. They've donated to police officers that had an issue. One of the police officers that had an issue. They've donated to so many different foundations. But at the end of the day, Dustin Poirier being the president, he chooses where that money goes. And if he gets $500,000 from Conor, that money just goes into an account tax-free, and Dustin has a choice of where he's going to spend that money. And there's no way he can possibly know right now where that money is going to go because it's a lot of money. He's not going to give one foundation $500,000. It's probably going to be over the course of a year or 2 years. So he couldn't have possibly told Conor where that money's going. And in that situation, it does say on the page for the Good Fight that none of the money goes to salaries or to pay for the employees. It all goes to the movement and donating and all that. But that doesn't say there's not expenses. And where people in the past that are celebrities or high profile people have got away with benefiting from companies like this, where they have all the power to donate to whoever they want and nobody can police them, whether they want to use however much in expenses, is like, for instance, say they want to donate to the Rescue Rhino Project in Africa, right? So say, not Dustin, again, this is nothing against Dustin or his company, this is all speculation, but say I had the foundation and I want to go to Africa and have like a 2-week vacation to Africa and see some awesome animals and take my staff and have fun and go visit all these crazy animals in Africa and do some cool stuff and look good and get publicity for donating to the Rescue Rhino Project. I would be taking other people's money, traveling to Africa, expensing the entire trip out. I could still not take a salary and not pay my staff, but yet we could fly on a private jet, or we could fly first class to Africa, go on safaris, do anything that we can associate as being a part of this whole giving money to the Rescue Rhino Project. Then we could donate $25,000 to the project or $50,000 and do some photos. And that's still all legit. There's no policing it. There's no one that's going to say, you shouldn't have flown private. You shouldn't have went first class. You shouldn't have done stuff. So in the past, this is where people have really took advantage of the expense side of these foundations. And also, I don't know how much money Dustin's put in, but he is taking a lot of donations, which means a lot of the donations that Dustin Poirier's company is actually giving is been given to him. So he's getting kind of credit for money that's been taken in. So if Conor gives him $500,000 for the next 2 years, he's going to look like a saint donating all this money to all these organizations and getting all these hookups and getting all this publicity, and it's all Conor's money. So you have to understand on that regard, Conor would have to be worried about where that money is going, and Dustin can't possibly tell him because it's just too much money.
Yeah, no, that's interesting points you brought up. I wasn't aware of most of those things either, but yeah, I guess it just comes down to, the guy's integrity, you say, and then Dustin's, if you're going to donate that type of money, but Yeah, I mean, when you go public on it, man,
it's crazy.
It's just at some point, you know, you can't blame the guy for doing his due diligence on a $500,000 donation.
Right.
But yeah, I tell you what, all this is going to make for a hell of a fight. Should they step in the octagon, you know, it's just going to add to you know, more views, more clicks, more eyes on the fight, if it even happens. But we'll see at this point. You know, Conor's retired already. He does a lot in the media. He plays with the media, man. As someone had said, like, almost like the Kardashians, you know, and I could see it. Like, he knows how to manipulate the media in his favor. And you know, it's just going to make for a hell of a fight, man. Both these guys, I mean, get them off the social media, get them in the octagon, what they do best, right?
I think it was a low blow on Dustin's part. I do agree with that. But you know, if they do fight, I would much rather see an angry Conor this time instead of a nice Conor. I didn't from the start. I knew it wasn't going to be good, and I don't know if it was an insecurity that Conor may have thought he was going to lose and or not show up as well and fight as good, and he kind of didn't want to look as bad, so he didn't want to like trash him too much. But it just looked not good from the beginning because it wasn't Conor, you know, and he was too nice, and it wasn't as interesting of a build-up and a fight as it could have been. So this might lead to a better fight, but if it doesn't lead to the fight and he does punish him by not giving him the fight, who would you like to see him fight, and who do you think he should fight? The first one that comes to my mind is Justin Gaethje, but who would you like to see? Because everybody's going for the fight right now. I mean, like literally the entire division, including Chandler, who already has a fight scheduled.
To your argument too, I mean, you never go wrong keeping it authentic, right? And I just felt like you said that didn't seem that authentic. He was kind of playing off how he already put so much hate out there in the Khabib fight. Maybe he was just trying to change his ways or whatnot. You never know who's in his ear too. You got probably a million people in his ear. I don't know, but it didn't seem like authentic, you know. And a couple verbal jabs later, and he's back.
Yeah, so, he's back.
As far as who I'd like to see him fight. Well, we already got Chandler and Oliveira in that weight class, right?
Well, Chandler's already said that he wants to fight him after the Oliveira fight, but I mean, he's not going to wait for that. The only person available right now, completely available, and who would be a hell of an interesting fight on the feet would be Justin Gaethje. And Justin technically just made an announcement that he's waiting for a good fight, and then this is happening. So it's almost perfect. Everyone else is kind of booked up. So to me, that's the vote that I'm going to throw in there, you know, because I think that would be a hell of a violent fight.
Makes sense. I mean, what's Gaethje coming off? Is he coming off Khabib, or did he fight again since then?
Unless I'm completely unaware and oblivious right now, the Khabib fight was the last fight.
Yeah, I want to say it was Khabib, right?
I'm going to look it up, but I'm 90% sure.
All the more reason why that fight needs to happen. Definitely. I mean, you got Chandler already fighting Oliveira. That's a hell of a fight. That's a great fight. I mean, it's tough to say. Chandler, you know, taking that spot one fight, but you can't. He performed, you know, flying colors. So it's tough to argue, but just it's weird how that works out sometimes. You know, a division can be kind of locked up depending on who's available, what's going on, and who gets that shot. You know, it's weird how that works out sometimes, but. You know, specifically even in my weight class right now, you got guys in the top 5 who haven't fought in, you know, how long, and then just how it all plays out. It's kind of, you know, just what's the situation like at that moment, you know, and right now, like you're saying, Gaethje would make a ton of sense, but it just don't sit right having Poirier on the sidelines or someone's fighting for the belt now, because he would have probably took that belt fight if he didn't get the Conor fight.
Yeah.
So, it's a tough. Weird how that plays out, but I wonder what Dana thinks.
And Khabib was Gaethje's last fight. I can't believe I didn't just know that off the top of my head, but he would have had a very low-key fight if he did have one, because I obviously watch every Gaethje fight. I'm a big fan of his, so he has been sitting out since Khabib. So it depends on where he's at right now.
Usman's fighting like a week, right? So I mean, he's got to be there. You see him in the gym with on social media, I guess, for him. You know, maybe he's not too far off. Put something together, you know, and at the end of the day, he's taking a lot probably worse short notice fights for a lot less money. I'm sure he'd sign up for that on any given moment. You know, a lot of people who wouldn't, you know, and it's funny. It's how do you not manipulate that when you got that type of power? Conor just does what he wants. You can't blame him.
Yeah, and then I think also if I was Poirier, I would still be pushing for the fight. Who doesn't want the Conor fight, obviously, especially after just knocking him out? I would go the route of like, you know, what happened a long time ago doesn't matter. You know, what happens right now or what happened recently was I knocked you out. I put you to sleep. Now, I would start attacking him in that regard, because we know Conor has an ego, and if he's a little upset about this whole donation thing, if you just kind of get away from that, if I was Poirier, get away from that and just get on the fact that, you know, he just knocked him out, he embarrassed him, he ended his career. Of course you're scared. You have an excuse now because of this donation thing. Now you're trying to back out of the fight. He's got to hit him that way. If he does that, then he can drag this fight back in and still get it, I think. And I think then we can have a real fight where we see Conor talking shit, and then we can see Poirier, you know, obviously if it affects him, and that would be a more realistic rematch, not rematch, but it's trilogy match, but it'd be a more realistic fight if it was an angry, you know, pissed off Conor versus a Poirier having to deal with that like it was the first fight, instead of Mr. Nice Guy, where Poirier's confidence had to have been through the roof in that fight.
Or just do a straight power move if you're Poirier and call out Gagey and just bypass Conor and leave Conor dust now, because who the hell is he going to fight? Yeah,
he has no one.
Like, all right, whatever. You call the shots with your higher ranked, almost, in a sense. I mean, given Dana ain't going to listen to that. He wants the money, but I mean, straight power move, just call out Gagey. The last guy to fight Khabib, you know, that'd be like the real title fight. They almost wouldn't even respect the Chandler Oliveira, even though they're both well deserving. Right. They would think more with, you know, Poirier, and, you know, that would be the real champ. Who knows? Make your own storyline. Yeah, it's tough going to the tune of somebody else, man, the beat of somebody else. But when you got that, you know, it's hard not to flex it like Conor's doing. But all makes for great fights. You know, headlines, definitely. We're talking about it. So, and
it would be punishment too, because like the problem is Conor's been inactive. So if Poirier causes him to be inactive longer, especially coming off of a loss, it's going to hurt him. He needs to stay active. He needs to get back in there fast 100%. Or quit fighting, one of the two, and he wants to keep fighting. So, you know, it would hurt him as well to have to sit on the sidelines for another few months or longer to wait for another big fight. And there's only so many out there available.
100%.
All right, guys, who's ready to save 20% and get free shipping on the best below-the-waist grooming products on the market? I'm talking about Manscaped, the official trimmer of the UFC, and now the official trimmer of the Real Quick and Mike Swick podcast. And now you can save 20%, get free shipping by using code QUICK at checkout, QUICK, my nickname, at manscaped.com. Precision engineered tools for your family jewels, and now they are available in Europe, Canada, and Australia. So all over the world, you can order Manscaped. Take advantage of this special. Support the podcast. Support your boy. Keep us going strong. It's a win-win for everyone. Thank you, guys. The Ben Askren and Jake Paul fight. I mean, I just did a video last night, and it's getting a ton of views. My take on that. I love doing these videos where the title was why Ben Askren will beat Jake Paul. And like when I'm so confident with the title, everybody has to watch it. But I always put myself out there, because if I'm wrong, I'm going to get trashed when this fight's over with. And I always do it with the underdog. Always.
You're going to get trashed on that if you get lost.
But I see him winning the fight.
Yeah, I respect that. I love a good underdog.
What do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
It's tough, man. I'll tell you what. I can't hate on either guy. They're both, what a win-win. You're fighting either, if you're Jake Paul, you're fighting Ben Askren for multi-million dollars after knocking out an NBA guy, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're Ben Askren, you're fighting a YouTube guy who just knocked out a basketball player. You're getting paid multi-millions. You just lost to Jorge Masvidal from a flying knee. You know, it's like, who are these guys? You know, but credit to them. I'm not a hater, man. You're making millions of dollars and off a half of a fight, like Conor says, you know, boxing is half of a fight, big-ass gloves. Askren's used to a lot worse than some, whatever they are, 10, 12-ounce gloves. Who knows what the hell they are. But, you know, a boxing match. They're getting paid multi-million dollars. Credit to both of them for the level of fight that is, for the amount of money they're getting. Big upside. So, yeah, I would say it's tough, man. You got to ask him, how do you not root for him if you're an MMA guy, right? You got to hope he does it. But even if he does, it's like we're going to discredit this shit out of him anyway. To say you beat up Ben Askren, you know, he's not a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
But if Ben Askren it's kind of a win-win and a lose-lose for both guys. Because you're going to win a bunch of money for fighting nobody. But once you win, you also won against nobody. So you're expecting this big hoorah, and they're just going to probably hit them both on at the finish line anyway. You know, they're just going to talk some shit no matter who wins. But yeah, a lot of high stakes. What is it like? Like their reputations are both just song. Oh, this is a reputation fight. You know, they're both getting paid, but from what I'm seeing, some of the highlights, man, that kid Jake Paul looks like he's throwing some heat. It'd be interesting the first couple of rounds. I bet you, how many rounds is it, by the way?
It's 8 rounds, 10-ounce gloves, and the weight limit's 200 pounds. And so Ben's going to be bigger.
200 pounds, man.
Ben's gonna. I think Jake Paul's around 185 or 89. I don't think he's over 190. So I think Ben will be a little bit bigger. And this is where it comes into play for me because, you know, Ben's a smart fighter who's an Olympian who's found a way to win against some of the toughest guys in the world. He's not going to go in there and swing wild like these other guys and leave his chin open. And he's also got 10-ounce gloves to cover up and protect himself. And I don't think Jake Paul can punch through a 10-ounce glove and knock out Ben Askren, if not even knock him out with the 10-ounce glove with no glove in the way. You know, he's never been knocked out with a glove. And so, you know, I think that the smart game plan would be to, you know, keep his hands up and kill those first 2 rounds off and not try and do anything crazy and let Jake Paul kind of punch himself out and then just close the distance with this wrestling footwork, which is amazing. He gets in on guys all the time and then clinch the shit out of Jake Paul and dirty box him and just wear him down. Because let me ask your opinion on this, your professional opinion, because my take is in boxing it's happened. It hasn't really, because boxers get built up too. They fight a lot of scrubs. Many famous
100%.
boxers fight a lot of scrubs to get to the top. But in MMA especially, like you, especially in the beginning when you have your first fights, the hardest part is digging deep when you get tired. And until you experience getting tired during a fight, having to dig deep and going through that, you can't overcome it and get better for the rest of your career. And Jake Paul hasn't experienced that yet. And I think this might be the fight where he gets pushed to that point where he's tired, maybe panicky, and then what's going to happen at that point? I don't see how a guy who's never had to push through it in a fight before is going to just, you know, have complete composure and fight like a pro for 8 rounds. And you know what I mean? I imagine he's probably going to get tired and panic.
Yeah, to your point, like I believe Teddy Atlas said the same thing about Mike Tyson, right? Like he ain't really been in more than 3 fights in his career because he just mauls everybody. Right. You know, and it's kind of to your point, like when have you felt resistance and how to push through that? It's tough to deal with. I felt a lot in my last fight. I know I could deal with resistance, man. I'm always going to be there to the last bell. That's one thing I've been aware of in my career, you know, how bad I want it. And, you know, so maybe Jake's got him in the gym because he looks like he's putting in some good gym wars. That'll do it. That won't do it all, but that'll give you a little taste. But there's nothing like that when you feel the pressure of the camera and have to rebound after, you know, blowing your load in that first or a couple rounds, you know, and just getting that adrenaline dump. There's nothing like that while having to continue to perform. But I would say that's a smart game plan if that's what Askren's looking to do. I would say definitely try to tie him up, wear out his arms, take some of the damage. I think it'll be exciting for the first couple rounds. I definitely think, though, like to your point, later in the fight, I don't know if these guys are built for 10. Not even Askren's used to 10 rounds, you know, so or 8 to 10 rounds, however many that's going to be. It's going to be up there. So the last couple of rounds, if it gets that far, I could see it being a little sloppy, to be honest. But yeah, Askren's found a way to win. He's a winner, right? He finds ways to win. The little different rule set, skill set. It'd be interesting, man. I don't want to just knock the Jake Paul kid because, you know, he's definitely motivated, highly motivated. He talks a lot. They both talked a lot of shit. So, you know, they're putting in the work. It'll make for a fun fight, man. Like I watched the last one. It was funny watching, you know, as bad as it was seeing the basketball player get knocked out. It's entertainment, man. It's just 2021, the fight game. And I don't even want to tell you what I got paid to fight Max Holloway, but I would have took, you know, the money that these guys are getting to fight Ben Askren and Jake Paul. I can't discredit them for making money off a half of a fight, like I said. But that's all it is. I think it's pure entertainment and something to talk about. But they're definitely getting the eyes on it. And it's tough to pick one in that, man. I joke around and say I want like a double knockout but that's just me being bitter about the money they're getting paid.
Yeah, of course. Well, they're still going to get that money if they get double knocked out. They're just going to have a little.
Yeah, they still get paid. They're both laughing to the bank.
And Jake's going to take it worse, man. I mean, you got to think about it like this. Ben Askren was retired at home with his family, just had surgery, not thinking about fighting. So at the end of the day, he's just going to go home with extra money, and he's probably not going to care or think about this fight ever again. It's not like he's going to get beat up by 20 million of his followers on every time he makes a post or whatever. So, and everyone knows he's not a superior striker, so it's not like he's going to go out there and not look good and people's going to make fun of him. They know it's going to be that way. And I think that's what could be embarrassing for Jake Paul is if he gets tired and runs out of cardio in, say, rounds 3 or 4, he could have a very sloppy beatdown where he's kind of like covering up, panicking, maybe running, and lose by TKO or lose by decision by a guy who's just chasing him down, beating him. And Ben doesn't need the cardio. He's got the mindset to push through, even if he does run out of cardio, even if he isn't in shape for 8 rounds.
100%. Yeah, he's got that build that even if the cardio, he knows how to push on the gas when there's no gas left, 100%. And that could pay dividends in the fight. It probably will. But good point on that as far as Askren not needing it. He's coming out of retirement. He's going to be a winner no matter what with the money. No one expects him to win. If he goes out and even has a half good performance, then credit to him, and like you're saying, if Jake Paul, who's actually trying to build a career out of this, loses, well, you could forget about that probably, aside from the circus views who he would fight next.
Back to YouTube. I think
that the hype chain would have to stop, right? I mean, who would he fight next?
Back to gamers.
And no one would really.
Back to gamers.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is with Jake Paul, like, you got to understand too, the pressure. Like, not only do you always feel pressure, like up throughout my entire career, when I've had the big fights, like the #1 contender fights or whatever, I still felt the pressure, as seasoned as I was, as many fights as I had. Now, whether it cost me to lose the fight or win the fight still or whatever the case, I had to dig deep because the pressure of being in a big fight against a big opponent on the big stage does weigh on you. And then when you see these videos of Jake Paul and he's like with his friends and he's so excited when he looks at the TV and sees his picture and Snoop Dogg's out there and he's going to be there. He's so excited that he's going to be on this fight card and it's going to be so big and he's going to be the main event. That's going to translate to pressure during the fight. Like right now, it's cool and it seems awesome like it was when I was having these big fights or bigger fights. But when you get out there, and especially if things start not going your way, it turns into pressure. And I think the press conference showed that. And me and Anthony Smith had a great conversation about that, which Chael Sonnen did an entire segment about. But it was to the point of, Ben Askren was so comfortable being at this level. This is nothing for him. He was at the Olympics. This is another day for him. So he's not going to have that extra pressure. And at the press conference, I think he won with flying colors as far as looking comfortable, composed. Jake Paul looked very uncomfortable. And then the palm to the face, 2 points in this. And in the video I just posted, I only listed 1 point, and that was, I'm not a street fighter, and I'm repeating myself if you watch this video, but I'm not a street fighter. I'm not trying to get in fights or fight outside the octagon or the ring. But if somebody threw their hand in my face and shoved my face back, I assure you, the last thing I would do is slap him on the ass. Like, that's 100%. That would be the last thing. And Jake Paul panicked. He didn't know what to do. And it wasn't like he was afraid to touch Ben Askren because of the rules or because there could be a fine.
Yeah.
He touched him, but he touched him on the ass, which, I know Jake's new to sports, but that usually means good job, and so it's like that wasn't a real big comeback in that regard. And then to flip it, Ben Askren put his hand in Jake's face, shoved it, and knew Jake wasn't going to do anything, and then just walked away. That's confidence. Like, he owned Jake Paul because he knew that he wasn't going to do shit, and he did it anyway, showed no care. No, I would be a little bit nervous, especially like someone like crazy like Jake Paul, and there's nobody around to break it up, that if I put my hand in his face and shoved it, I might get punched, or I might get tackled, or I might get pushed and go off balance and fall down and be embarrassed. Ben didn't give a shit, and it happened exactly how Ben thought because Jake didn't do anything about it. And I think that kind of ownage is what's going to take over in the fight when Jake gets into a position where he's a little bit uncomfortable and confused and might not know what to do.
Yeah, it's weird how little moments like that can magnify in a fighter, or that little seed he planted psychologically, and how that builds. And that's kind of what you got with Poirier and McGregor in a small sense too, not to jump topics. But, these guys are just doing psychological warfare however they can. It's not just when when they lock up in the cage, especially when you get a long tour of trying to promote the event. But it's very interesting they pushed his face and he turned around, because now he's putting Logan in a situation where if he hits somebody, he's not facing him. It's kind of like he sucker punched him, right?
Yeah.
He just muffed his face, which I do love a good face muff, right?
Yeah.
But if that ever happens to me, the last thing I'm going to do, like you said, slap him in the ass or hit him with a weird body. I don't know what that was. But I'm definitely going to lose the opportunity to fight this guy, or he's not going to be able to fight after the shot I gave him after that. No one's ever muffing my face like that and getting away with it, especially if no one's around to stop me.
I mean, he chased him down to slap him in the ass. Then he stopped dead in his tracks and started talking trash, but not continuing to follow Ben. So it was a very weird situation that showed a lot of confusion and a lot of holding himself back for, not because he was scared, but because he just didn't. Maybe he was. I don't know. I think it showed a lot.
No, he's not. Like, generally speaking, a fighter. You do that to a fighter, they're gonna fight you.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in a fight. Like, it's a fight. But if there's guys, there's a difference. I mean, I always try to say it too. It's like you train MMA, but I don't necessarily say that like you're a fighter, you know, or like you could say they can push through that resistance. It takes a different type of breed. Some of these guys are really good at training the sport, and they're talented. But I don't know if I'd call them maybe a fighter at heart. You know, it's different. And I think, yeah, you might have caught a glimpse of that. You know, maybe he was a good kid. Maybe he never been in no street fights. Maybe he's only been in the octagon or the rings and things like that, where it's been, you know, it's a little different, man. And not to discredit that, you don't have to be some hard guy to come out of the, you know, the streets to make it in the fight game. That's definitely not what it is. But it tells a story. It definitely does. And the last thing, like you're saying, I would ever do after getting my face muffed is go up and have verbal exchange after a physical altercation. You know what I'm saying? It's like I reciprocate the level that these guys take it at. So if you want to get physical, it's going to be physical. You want to keep it verbal, maybe I'll entertain. I'll keep it verbal, maybe jab back you, but mostly I'm saving all your words for the fight. You know, mostly that's like Bill Belichick said, we keep the locker room material to ourselves ideally, but it's tough, man. We try to promote a fight, a big fight. You know, at the end of the day, the more shit you talk, the bigger that bottom dollar is going to be. And I try not to discredit the guys that go out and make these bold predictions and talk that smack and do their part to sell a fight, knowing that they're selling out in a sense, like these guys that you could tell it's disingenuous, it's not authentic. But at the end of the day, it's selling the fight. So knowing what they're doing, it's, you know, you kind of try to give them a pass, knowing it's part of the game and they're getting paid out of it. But I always prefer to try to keep it real, authentic. And that's just the way I'll always keep it, man. I don't know. So with situations like that, I definitely can't level with them. You know, I try to call it for what it is.
And as real quick, one last point I want to get your opinion on. What is your opinion on the difference of boxing footwork and wrestling footwork? I heard Ben Askren say that he got something like 48 of 50 takedowns in his career when you look at all of his fights. That's incredible. In my opinion, it's a lot harder to get, you know, in on somebody without them seeing you than, like I said, boxing footwork. So how do you think that comes into play, considering in wrestling, you have to almost go chest to chest and almost kiss somebody on the face without them seeing you, without them knowing you're coming to get that takedown. And Ben is an expert at that. How do you think that's going to play into this fight, even though it's not boxing footwork, but yet he can move good, he can judge movement, he can go to places where you don't expect him to be, and he can get there without seeing him get there. How do you think that's going to translate in this fight against someone like Jake Paul, who's inexperienced?
Yeah, angles are angles, right? And you find that they transition a lot through the sports, you know, fighting or not. But, you know, he knows how to capitalize off a good angle. The circumference radius where he's going to be trying to close now is a little further away. But, I mean, that being said, you know, he was able to duck under Masvidal's punches. He timed the jab, though, shot real well. Yeah. He just, you know, you can't throw flying knees in boxing. So I don't think he'll have too tough of a time if he does choose to sell out and just bend at the hips, you know, duck underneath the heavy shots of Paul. But the footwork, yeah, like you're saying, he knows how to move. He's elusive with the movement. Now he just have to figure out how to capitalize off it with strikes instead of takedowns. But angles are angles, yeah.
All right. Well, so no prediction from you. So you're going to go political on me. And
I hate to do that. You
what
know,
about a guess?
I want to stick my neck on the line so all these people could chop my head off too. I usually only do it for the betting website, so they ask me to make a pick, and even then I get roasted. I've only gone 1 for 1. I don't know if I've ever gone 2-0. I'll stick my neck out on the line.
Not based on friendship, not based on experience of knowing the guys, not based on their reputation, not based on anything except a gut feeling only. What do you think you're going to see at the end of the fight when they announce the winner? Like, just what is your gut feeling? That's all.
All right. So not sticking with Askren because he's a mixed martial artist. Man, I do. There's two parts to me, man. I always say whenever I make a prediction about a fight, I like to say it one of two ways. If Askren can, cut off those angles,
that's
small,
fine.
Make it a dirty boxing fight, favors him. And then if Paul could leave it on the outside distance and land those heavy shots, when Askren sometimes closing that distance, it's a war zone. So if Paul can make it ugly on him closing that distance before he gets into initiating that clinch, you know, it'll be a rough day for him as well. But
we can leave it at that if you want. That's fine. We can leave it at that. I mean, that makes sense, and it's possible. You know, it's
yeah, but I'll stick my neck on. Honestly, and I don't want to say, and this makes me disgust it. I haven't even gave a prediction on it, but I guess I would say, as bad as that is, man, I think that this kid Jake Paul might actually do it. And I agree with you that Askren's a winner and he finds a way to win. It's just a different rule set, and I think this kid's really going all in. Kind of like you said, I think my mindset on it is leaning towards the trajectory, right? You said like the veteran on his way out or the guy on his way in.
Absolutely.
And I think like with the Rob and Garbrandt, you know, I feel like Askren's too far down that line where he's kind of been comfortable for a while. I don't know how much that competitive edge he has left. You saw it. He doesn't care. He's smushing his face. He's not pressured. Sometimes that can bite you in the ass if you don't feel that pressure. And, you know, I think Jake Paul, even though he's going to maybe fight scared, a scared fighter is sometimes dangerous. He's feeling all the pressure. He's training hard. Maybe I would lean towards him getting it done and then just seeing that circus act go on a little longer and who he fights next, man, that money train. But, I wouldn't be upset if it went the other way. I might even be happy.
No, I agree. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And to be honest with you, I mean, you're going with what every other site's going with. Everyone has Jake Paul as a favorite for a reason, and that's because, you know, how dangerous of a fighter he is. And you know, I said it was cowardice what he's doing, because he did pick an MMA fighter who had the least amount of boxing experience, who was retired, who's coming off hip replacement surgery, who isn't thinking about fighting. So, you know, for those exact reasons, it's very likely he possibly could get that punch, because he's fighting a guy that's very, you know, unready to get in there and fight. He wasn't expecting to fight. So
the smallest guy in the group.
Yeah.
Call him the smallest guy.
It's possible.
There's respect in that. But smart, but a cowardice. I agree with you, man. But I try not to sound like a bitter hater, you know, over here. Like, these guys getting paid, man. Credit to both of them. I wish I was getting paid that amount to fight that caliber of an opponent. But credit to both them to find themselves in that opportunity. You know, they did what they had to do to get it. Now, let's just hope it all goes off without a hitch. I don't think it should be any weight-making issues at 200 pounds. Man, Ben Askren must be loving that. He doesn't have to cut weight. He's making 10 times the amount for half of the fight.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to make another prediction that's very bold right now, and it's very specific. But here's what I'm going to predict after the fight. If what happens that you say is correct and Jake Paul wins, and I'm not saying it's not impossible, it's very possible Jake Paul could win this fight. I'm not bagging on him. Here's what I think is going to happen with the whole. Let's summarize the whole headline show. If Jake Paul wins this fight, his confidence is going to be through the roof that he can beat anybody. Now, the one person that he wants to fight, that's a big fight that's now available, and both guys can make an enormous amount of money, is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor might be watching this fight, and if somehow Jake Paul flatlines Ben Askren, he could sell this fight enough to possibly make this fight happen, which could be that I'd watch it, you know, whether I know Conor would win in my opinion, but I would watch the hell out of the fight. And if Jake Paul goes out there and looks like a beast, like a Mike Tyson type crazy beast that just unleashes punch after punch after punch for 2 rounds and knocks out Ben Askren, it could happen. So I'm going to make another kind of bold prediction that maybe Conor's watching this fight and thinking about he made a hell of a lot more money in boxing than he did in MMA, and this might be another shot of boxing.
And if he does get the win, I'll even make a bolder prediction. I'll root for his ass against Conor.
Yeah,
at that point, good for you, man. You spoke it into existence. The stars aligned, and somehow you went from fighting an NBA player to an ex-fighter, you know, who didn't have the best stand-up, to now Conor McGregor. You know, credit to you, man. So, yeah, it'll be exciting, man. What's the line on that, by the way?
It's it's not like a huge. He's not a huge underdog, but it's like I think it's like -130, +135 or something like that. It's not crazy. It's not crazy.
All right. Well,
and I might be wrong. It depends.
We'll have to catch up post-fight. I'm gonna shoot you a message post-fight for sure. I'm gonna figure out who wins this one. But how long until that one kicks off? What's the date on it?
Saturday. It's gonna be this Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm tuning in. Yeah. All right. Cool. I got nothing going. I'm ready.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
And then the last thing really fast, just because this news just broke like this morning when I woke up, Ngannou and Tyson Fury is going back and forth wanting to fight. So to switch things up a little bit between a YouTuber and an actual fighter who's retired and has MMA experience, Ngannou versus a fighter that's a boxer of that caliber, do you think Ngannou, even with that big crazy power, has the cardio to fight a guy like Tyson Fury? I mean, that's a little different scenario, I think, and they're both wanting this fight.
That one I'm excited about, though. That's a hell of a fight.
I'd watch it.
You got some heavyweights crossing boundaries there of a MMA versus boxing. That's like a real deal fight. I like that. That gets my attention, and both guys are high level at what they do. But I always try to compare boxing and mixed martial arts to like sprinting and marathon running. They're both running. It's a sport of running, but they're just a little different, It's not the same sport. But that being said, I mean, either one of those guys, I would say more so Ngannou could put anybody in the world down. And Fury, might just take him a little while longer to pick him apart, get the defense down, and then put him away. But what a hell of a fight that is, man. I would love to see that one. And I hope he does put away Joshua. Fury puts away Joshua just to build that fight, because what a fight that would be. And honestly, about the Ngannou and Jones, make that happen already. Both guys are willing.
I want to see that too.
Not oftentimes you have guys that are down to fight, willing to fight. Hate to lose a fight over money. Like, figure it out, make it happen, and let the fight happen in their primes. The fans deserve it. The fighters want it. John Jones, arguably the best fighter, to ever compete. To say he's scared is crazy, man. It's just not even on the radar. These guys, different breeds, but I'm excited to see all those matchups. And it's great to have a heavyweight in the game, because that's the pinnacle of fighting, and most, common, fans is the heavyweights, right? They want to see the heavyweight battle. And it's nice that we got a guy in the running to go compete against the Fury. We got a Ngannou. So I'd love to see it.
And imagine this. Imagine if they get this fight done with Jones and Ngannou, and then Tyson Fury, say he beats Joshua and Ngannou beats John Jones, and you got two of the heavyweight kings of the world fighting each other. That would be a huge freaking match, man. I mean, that would be a gigantic match between two styles.
Bigger than McGregor Floyd, I bet.
It could be big. And the one thing, I will agree with you on the whole point of like being similar as far as like a marathon and a race. But I think the difference being, and why I think Ngannou is going to have a hard time beating someone like Tyson Fury, is boxers are very specific and they got a very limited style, which means if they've had a lot of experience in boxing and they're at the top and they're champions, they've spent so much time on such a small number of moves. They're even more experts at those moves, versus an MMA fighter has to know so many moves. There's still MMA fighters like Ben Askren, who's one of the best in the world, who is not a good striker by any means. There's wrestlers that aren't good strikers. There's strikers that are not good wrestlers, and they're still doing good. And then there's well-rounded guys that are decent at everything. But in boxing, it's hard to beat a good boxer. You know what I mean? Like at his own game.
Right. Yeah, it's a half fight, man. It's different, Like you're saying, you only focus on the hands. Sometimes I think I wish I got into boxing. You only have to worry about the stand up, but
Left,
those
right,
guys,
hook.
they're very efficient with their movement. How they throw their punch. It's very powerful, and they don't exert a lot of energy to make it that powerful. You see Ngannou when he throws power, it's not so much organic. It's not so much efficient, It's definitely organic. It's coming, and it's coming from it. Sometimes it really impressed me how he was very patient that last fight. He's continuing to build, but yeah, I think Fury definitely, he finds a way how to deal with that. But I wouldn't rule out Ngannou. He's got great coaches around him, great training partners. The guy's committed to the game. Obviously, he's training, making improvements every fight. He's like a new fighter. So who knows by the time they actually step in there, because the way the boxing world works, they push these fights back forever. So he'll have a lot of time to prepare. And I'd be interested in watching that matchup for sure. That would definitely get my attention. I'd be very excited for that bout. And if Fury takes out Joshua and Ngannou takes out Jones, I definitely think, like you're saying, you have a mega fight on your hands that is bigger than I would say Mayweather and McGregor, and it doesn't even need the hype with the shit talk, because the skills and the size will draw the numbers and eyes itself. You know,
I agree.
It'd be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I agree, man. And Calvin, thank you so much for taking the time out, man. This has been an awesome conversation, even at 5 in the morning, waking up for me, because usually I go to bed close to 5 a.m. But it's been fantastic, man. I love talking to you. I love having you on the podcast. Likewise. And I love my new segment, man. I'm not trying to be biased here, but I love talking about the headlines with guests like yourself, because I think everybody has such great insight, and you had such good input. And so, man, thank you so much for coming on the show and doing one of these segments with me. And I look forward to having you back on again in the future.
Likewise, man. I appreciate you having me on again, and always good to talk to you. And like I said, man, I look forward to come out there and doing one of these in person sometime when this COVID goes down a little bit more.
I was about to say, I'm holding you to it, man. We're getting you out here to Thailand when this quarantine and pandemic's over.
Once Rob Font takes out, hopefully, Cody, and we got a little limbo maybe at some point. One of these times I'm going to sneak out there and we'll get some great training, man. I'm looking forward to seeing Thailand. You're the man I got to go see it with, man. I'm excited, but always good talking to you, Mike. I appreciate your time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time.
Yes, sir.